Hey guys, good morning. Welcome to the Smarter News Week in Review. This is the time where we take a step back and a deep breath and take a look at the news of the week and see which themes are really emerging and what we're really learning when we lean back and look at the big picture. So this week I saw a theme that is more in the form of a question. When is an end really a beginning? And part of the reason I'm thinking about this is that it's Holy Week. We're going into Easter weekend. My family celebrates Easter, and Easter is about the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, an end and in many ways a beginning. And as I was looking at different stories these week, drastically different stories, I saw these stories beg to ask the same question. And so here's 3 different stories from the week that I think really play with this theme and maybe provide some insight about how we actually look at the news as we head into a brand new week as well. So we started the week with marking the assassination of Abraham Lincoln more than 150 years ago. Abraham Lincoln was actually shot on Good Friday in the theater after 10 o'clock at night. And you have to remember that time in history. An intense time of divide in America. The South had just surrendered to the North. Many thought, okay, we're going to turn the corner, and then the president is murdered, the first American president to be assassinated in U.S. history. And for many waking up to the news the next morning, they must have thought, this is the end. There's no way that we're going to recover from this. But as we know, that end was actually the beginning of a new stage in America. No matter how disastrous and horrendous that was, the assassination of the American president, America was set on a different course. And here we are. We didn't end at the 16th president of the United States. We're actually on the 45th president of the United States, who's also in the news this week. So what seemed so final, the death of Abraham Lincoln, and perhaps devastating to the Union, actually pushed the Union in a different direction and helped us create the America that we now know today. Another way that the end becomes the beginning is you're looking at this amazing story, this heartbreaking story that we saw in Paris this week of the burning of Notre Dame Cathedral. And watching it, I felt, I know you did too, how will we ever recover from this? How will my children ever be able to see and understand the glory of Notre Dame? But when you really look into the history of the construction of this amazing cathedral that has survived so much, you realize that for hundreds of years, this cathedral has been renovated and rebuilt and reestablished in many ways. And so, although the fire was the end of a chapter for this cathedral and a certain end to part of the structure, it's actually the signal of a new beginning that continues the tradition that this cathedral already had. This tradition of having multiple hands and multiple layers and many different designers create this majestic structure that really feels like it belongs to the world. So an end also signaling the beginning. And then finally, this is going to sound like quite a connection, but it's true. You think about the special counsel report. The special counsel report that was supposed to, the special counsel investigation, supposedly, it's just going to be focused on the meddling in the campaign, Russian collusion, potentially in the 2016 campaign, but we know that it was a much broader investigation as well. Thinking, wow, when we finally get that special counsel report, it will be the end. We will know all the answers. And what we're learning is really it's the beginning of a new stage. Just yesterday on Thursday, the world finally sees a redacted version of the report. And there's 3 major takeaways to that. One is that there is no evidence of Russian collusion with President Trump's team before or after the election. That's one of the conclusions. One of the other conclusions is there's a question about obstruction of justice and whether or not the president committed obstruction of justice. What you should know about that is that you don't have to be guilty of a crime to commit obstruction of justice, but if you try to impede or influence any sort of federal investigation, you could be guilty of that. And the special counsel report is raising that question. Now, the third thing you should know is that no one is answering that question quite yet. The Department of Justice says they're not going to be prosecuting the president of the United States. The special counsel said, we're here to investigate and we just want to show you what we've learned. And so now it's really going to be up to Congress to decide what are they going to do with this information. The investigations in Congress continue into the president in many different levels, but where those actually lead is a big question as well. They could go drastically different directions. It could lead to an impeachment proceeding, or it could stop. We could learn more, but the actual impact of the special counsel report and those investigations maybe doesn't lead to impeachment. It might just lead to another chapter in the story. And so I think what an interesting quote you should know is that Democrat Steny Hoyer said he wasn't leaning towards impeachment because he really was thinking of leaving this up to the judgment of the American people during the next election. So you could be responsible for where this story goes next. So the conclusion of the special counsel report and being able to read parts of it is actually the beginning of another chapter that is playing out right before our eyes. So that's also important to know today. And also to know potentially your role in it, because it's not necessarily in a criminal court that we're going to see anymore, but it's going to be the court of public opinion. So this is the question I'm asking again this week. When is the end really the beginning? What stories do we try to tie up in a bow that really are launching us in a completely different direction? And when at times is there a bigger picture? Oftentimes in the news we try to predict the end because we want to have a conclusion. We want to be able to deliver it. But there's always sometimes a larger plan, a bigger picture that, again, we can't see at the exact moment, but we're part of because we're witnessing history together. So just something to think about as you go into your holiday, Passover, Easter, whatever you're celebrating, maybe just some family time this weekend. When does it end? Actually a beginning. We'll be looking for the beginning of next week's news cycle on SmartHER News, so join us there throughout the week and on social media, and we always appreciate your support. Direct message us on social media or email us with any story ideas or thoughts, info@smarternews.com. From my family to yours, have a great weekend. I'll see you next week.